Welcome, my friends, to the podcast that never ends, where we gather our clan and talk about peace and love in our lives, the difficulties along the journey, and how we rise up. We will experience a little thing I call Kluberty together, find our sweet spot, and planting our seeds to watch them grow in our magic garden. I'm Uncle Dave, and our transformation starts right here. Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today's episode is Tori McBrien. I can't wait to talk because we're going to learn about Feng Shui. We all hear about it, but I know I don't know enough about it. And if you look at my space, I am probably not aligned the way that I need to be. So after today, maybe I'm going to have some ideas. How are you doing this morning, Tori?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Now, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It is one of those topics that I'd love to know more about. I do a lot of talking about energy work. And could you explain to us what you do among the things that you do? You do a lot of things.
Yes. So my main bread and butter is interior design, and that's actually what led me to Feng Shui. It's really a study of the energy of a space. So you can think of it as using what's around you physically to enhance what's going on in your life. And I discovered it through COVID, actually. I've always designed intuitively, but then when COVID hit, I slowed down quite a bit and was trying to find balance in my life. I think we all were, right? We're all a little bit crazed, either teaching our kids from home or trying to work from home and all those kinds of things. And I discovered Feng Shui and loved it. It describes a lot of kind of the way I design, and actually always have designed that way, just didn't really know what to call it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really interesting because as you started talking about it, I've thought about it before. But when we even just clean our houses, we start feeling better. So it is moving the energy. Could you go a little deeper than just how did you find out about it during the pandemic, which we all took in that inner wise information?
Yeah, I think we all went into ourselves a little bit and tried. Some people started baking bread, or we all just tried to find an outlet. And for me, I've always had a background in sort of Asian philosophies. I was a Japanese major in college. A lot of my family has been raised in Asia. So there was this pull, and I'd heard about Feng Shui, but I didn't really know what it was. So I combined my career path of design and this need for a different outlet during COVID, and found some teachers and discovered it. But to get back to your other question, I think everyone does Feng Shui already. Like you were talking about how cleaning things out and decluttering helps make people feel good. Mm-hmm. And I think we do this already with the holidays. Everyone changes the energy of their space by whether it's decorating for Christmas or setting the table for Passover. It's those little details and changes that bring balance or excitement or whatever it is that you're looking for into the space. So everybody does that already. They just don't know that's what they're doing.
Putting a title on it, it's much like in the work that I do when people say, I know when some people walk up to me, I feel that tension automatically, even if they've never met somebody. And I go, yeah, there's an energy. It's nerves, why we do things. So how did you get into it? So obviously we're in the pandemic, and you've been an interior decorator for many years, and you didn't embrace the Feng Shui. You didn't know you were doing that. You
Right.
had always done that. You always knew intuitively what needed to be done for your clients.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think once I started studying Feng Shui itself, there are a bunch of different schools of thought within Feng Shui, but the one that I found, which is called BTB, or it's Western, it's a little bit more modern, a little bit more intuitive driven. But once I started studying it, it really resonated with the way I design. Like I said, when I can feel when a space feels off, or I can hear what a client is saying, even though they're not really saying it. So it's reading between the lines. It's seeing how they have a space set up and taking it from there. So now when I design, I don't necessarily say that I'm using the Feng Shui. Some people aren't interested in it per se, or they think it's what we call woo. It's a little bit out there, but I do it intuitively. So it's happening whether the client asks for it or not.
Yeah, because it's one of your tools in your toolbox, and it's how you apply those tools to really take it to that next level. So,
Absolutely.
no, I understand that really well because, again, depending on the client, that woo, depending on where you cross that line, you can't always come back to. But if you just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, that becomes a completely safe space to move forward in.
Yeah. And even for me, I can feel the energy, but I got my master's degree in design, and my thesis was all about how much science there is behind Feng Shui. There's not a whole lot of research in that because people don't want to put the dollars towards it. But
Sure.
when I started to break it down and compare environmental psychology, some of the anthropology, and like sustainable design, all of these things, there are elements of Feng Shui in them. We just don't know that's what we're calling it. For example, in Feng Shui, it's really important to have 3 different areas in your life in what we call command position. So your desk, which is representative of your career, your bed, which is representative of yourself, and your stove, which is representative of your wealth or opportunities or abundance and whatever that means to
What was
you.
that?
Your stove, your desk, and your bed, those are all really important areas in your home because they represent very important aspects of your life. And you want those to be in command. And what being in command means is that, let's say you're sitting at your desk. You want to be facing the door so you see what's coming in at you, but you don't necessarily want to be directly in line with it. And again, a lot of people do this already. They put themselves in the command position, let's say when you go into a restaurant and you are the first one there, let's say you're meeting someone for a drink or whatever. You normally take, most people, I should say, take the seat that's facing the door with their back to a wall so they can see when their friend comes in or they can see what's coming at them. And so in Feng Shui, it's that energetic or the energy coming at you that you're trying to be aware of, not necessarily control, but you just want to be able to see it coming at you, but not be directly in line with it. So the command position in Feng Shui is very similar to a environmental psychology principle of prospect and refuge, where you always want to have your back protected. And you want, even anthropologically, we have, as humans, always wanted a position of safety. So your back is protected and you can see what's in front of you. If you're not in that position, whether you know it or not, there's a bunch of fear hormones and all kinds of stress hormones going off in your body. Right. So that's why, without even being conscious of it, you're usually choosing that specific chair in a restaurant. So again, it's one of those things we're already doing. They're just starting to talk about it scientifically with environmental psychology.
I understand it. Yeah, sure.
The Chinese have been doing it for something like 3,000 to 5,000 years. So it's just interesting. I like to have the facts behind it too. There's not a whole lot out there, but in my research, it's starting to all come together anyway.
You've been doing this for a while. You've been using it, not knowing, and now that you've understood some of the science, the facts behind it, you've now applied it to your business and in your life. And I'm just thinking of all the different things. Like here, this is where I record my podcast episodes, and I'm like, huh, okay, good. So I'm not exactly, I'm in line with the stairs to go up to the house from the basement, but it's not exactly a straight line. I'm like, okay, I have a curved desk. I'm like, okay, didn't even know that.
Yeah. See, people automatically do it. And one of the hardest things to put in command is your stove. Most people aren't renovating their kitchens just to put their stove in command, but there are ways to correct if you can't get something in command. For example, in my house, there's no way to put my bed in command. So I have a dresser across from my bed with a mirror on it that reflects the door. So it energetically reflects the energy coming at you, or like when you wake up in the morning, you can see the door. For me, this is also very practical. I have 2 young kids, so I know what's coming at me first thing in the morning. Okay, so again, it's those kinds of things.
All right, so I'm thinking, okay, so again, I'll use my example. So my bed is perpendicular to the wall, to the door, right? It's like at my feet, but to the left. But I do have a mirror, and the way I sleep is actually facing into the middle of the bed to the mirror, so I can see the door. Which generally, when the kids are not home or when the dog usually sleeps with me, but when he doesn't, I leave the door open. So does it matter if you have your door open or not?
They say you should usually keep your doors closed.
Mhm.
I don't always follow that rule because I have two cats, as you can see, and they to come in and out all night. But like I keep my kids' doors closed, things like that.
Sure,
So
yeah. Yeah, normally I keep my door closed. If it's just the dog and I in the house and she comes into bed with me right away, I keep her in for the night. But
yeah.
sometimes she's a little bit more resistant and wants to sleep on the couch, but then come into me in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, animals do similar things too in terms of a protective mode. If you'll see, they curl up and they'll, like my cats, they'll curl up with me, but they'll have their back next to my body so they're facing out. Animals do that too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting when you get into some of the psychology and science of it. But
Yeah, and there's an energy. I know when I had cats, and you could see which cats come to you energetically to rub against you, and that's why some cats do, and they don't rub against everybody. When you start noticing, a lot of this is what you have to notice.
yeah, yeah. It's
And
all about
so,
kind of that intuition and feeling things out.
yeah, I guess it's also being present and noticing what. So what? And again, this is where I'm probably really bad. The kitchen. Okay, so I have lots of pots and pans on my stove because I when I'm doing cooking, I don't want to keep lifting them up and down. So when I'm home by myself, like now my girls have come home from college, so I'll have a little more cleaning because it'll be more multiple meals than just myself.
Mhm.
How does that work in the kitchen? How, well, just a generalization.
So again, that stove is really important in terms of the wealth that you bring in or the opportunities that you bring in. Could be an abundance of joy. It's whatever that means to you in your life at that moment. But in feng shui, you want your stove, you want everything to be in good working order. So make sure that all your burners are working, that it's clean all the time. So give it a, I always wipe it down every night, but then I give it a good scrub with like barkeeper's friend on the weekend. And I would not keep all your pots and pans there because you want it to be
Okay.
open. You want to be able to welcome in that energy, right?
Okay.
So if it's all cluttered, then that energy can't reach you. So better to
Okay.
keep that open.
All right. I figured I'd ask
Um,
while I don't
yeah,
mind being the guinea
definitely.
pig, but
And I think, oh, sorry, go
ener
ahead.
energetically, I knew that wasn't the right thing, but
Yeah. I think the kitchen too, feng shui is it's called the art of the placement in a lot of cases. And I think the kitchen just in modern life is always the heart. So it's not necessarily, this gets a little bit more in depth, but we use a tool called the Bagua. And the Bagua is an energy map to read a space. Different
Hmm.
schools of thought use it differently. The way that I use it is you take a floor plan and lay the Bagua on top and stretch it out so you can see there are, sorry, let me back up a little. There are 9 different areas, and they all pertain to a different part of life. So you've got a wealth corner, you've got a career corner, you've got a relationship corner, a completion corner, not necessarily corners, but areas. So I can see what's going on in your life based on what's happening in those spaces. So let's say you've got a ton of clutter in one specific area of the Bagua or the energy map. So I can say, oh, I'd start asking questions about, are you having relationship issues at work or whatever it is, whatever I'm seeing? And it works pretty well. But my point in saying that is that the center of the Bagua is the Tai Chi, which is your health. For me, I take it a little differently. Like the kitchen for me is the center. That doesn't mean I use the Bagua map any differently, but I think it's such a huge part of what we how we live today. Everyone always gathers in the kitchen. That's where you nourish yourself. That's where we do our family dinners. So to me, it's one of the most important spaces. So it should be free of clutter. I always have fresh flowers or live plants because those bring in nature and good energy. If the weather's nice, I always have the windows open so you've got good energy and airflow, all those kinds of things. So the kitchen is, if you're going to touch on any area, I would say get your kitchen.
okay, I hear you. Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking of especially before the kids came home from college. I know what my house was, and a friend of mine had come in. It was like, I go, yeah, but I just have all these things placed. So if I'm here by myself, it doesn't matter. But it really does matter because as you're thinking, and I realized it also, is yeah, you want to separate your spaces. Like here, I really need to work down here more often in my work space versus the living space and not blend the two.
Yeah, I do that too. It's hard though.
Yeah, I know it's hard, and
I
it's a
end
work
up
in
working in the
progress.
kitchen. I end up working in the living room just because I want to be with my family when I'm doing emails and things like that. But yeah, that separation can be an important piece of that. The other interesting thing is that you can feng shui as a verb, like your desk. Let's say you're having an issue with something at work, or you're working on a project and you're trying to complete it. You just can't figure out what's going on, or you want to bring it to a conclusion. So you can tweak something on your desk in a certain area to help bring you that completion. And so part of it for me too is not only the energy change that happens, but there's also something about mindset. And let's say I have something on the left side of my desk to help me complete. Every time you look at that, it's going to trigger something in your mind. There's a psychology behind it that, oh, yeah, I do that because, or I did that because I'm trying to finish this book I'm writing, or whatever the goal is. It just changes your mindset. Even if it's for a split second, it takes you to a different place instead of having you spinning your wheels. So there's an energy to it, there's an intention to it, there's a mindset shift to it. And I think that's a really easy way of explaining it as well.
No, I think that's awesome because talk about often how we shift our mindset and how everything else goes on. That was one of the famous sayings that I had heard when I was going through some dark periods, that if you change everything within yourself, the outside world changes. It's part of Ho'oponopono, the changes within ourselves, change within the world. And it really becomes powerful when you see it happen in real life.
Yeah.
How's that happened in your life?
In question. I think I would say that COVID was probably a dark time for me. I just felt like between having to run my own business, homeschool my kids, all of a sudden my husband was home every day, which I was not used to. I was used to having the house to myself during the day. It was really difficult to balance all those things and feel like life was still normal and try and keep it normal for my kids. My oldest son was in kindergarten and when the school shut
Hmm.
down. So to try and keep some normalcy for him, and then daycare shut down, everything. So I would say that when I found feng shui and started implementing some of the practices, it really helped balance things for me. So, for example, there's a trick that I use when there's a lot of tension going on. One of the in feng shui is to bring in sound. So, some practitioners will use like little bells or a singing bowl. I just play music. So, if my kids are fighting, I say, okay, everyone gets to pick one song, ask Alexa to play it in the kitchen, and we have a little dance party. And it immediately shifts the energy. So it's those little tricks that I've learned to implement that kind of pushes the dark out. And it's on a daily basis. It's on what happened during COVID. I use them all the time.
And I think that's the right way to go about it. You're the expert. I am really glad that you're enjoying the show, and I hope you follow us on all the podcast hosting sites, as well as Facebook, Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat, or you can follow me, Uncle Dave, David Chemetsky, at Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, and www.davidchemetsky.com. I also would enjoy for you to contact me if you want to just have some feedback. You need somebody to talk to at peacelovebringabat@gmail.com. Love to hear your feedback. Thanks. When I work with people, that's what I do. I believe if you touch the five senses, that if you can remember the things, and it's funny that you mentioned about the kitchen, because a lot of times when I go smells, it's not only smells of a mom or a partnership if you and your husband are cooking, it's also about grandma, some of those memories,
Yeah.
or an aunt or family times. When you do that and it brings you back, I love that you get to have your kids choose when they're going through an episode, and that's really very empowering because they were able to choose the songs that they wanted at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you touched on the five senses too, because energy does that. You feel like an airflow when you open the windows. There's color to it, and there's color psychology, of course, and then there's color cures and feng shui. There's talking about taste and being in the kitchen and cooking or touching and being tactile. All those things come into play. And I like thinking about hitting all five of those actually. I hadn't thought about all of them together, but I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's part of my comic book that I put out about the Pathfinder, and this character in it is Mr. 5S, talking about the five senses and how we can work through our biggest challenges going through the five senses. If one sense is blocked or damned, you just move the energy through some of the other ones, and then they all become realigned with ourselves.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
So how do you realign with yourself? Obviously, your house is kept and everything, but every now and then the energy, just because life gets in our way, the kid, as you said, the kids get upset, you shift the energy.
Yeah.
How do you do that for yourself?
That's funny you asked that because for a very long time, I was very good about getting up and meditating every day. That's a big part of my daily practice. I try and go for a walk with a neighbor just to get outside and clear my head for 20, 25 minutes as frequently as I can. I've recently become incredibly busy on the design side. And it occurred
Congratulations.
to me this morning that I haven't sat down and taken the 10 minutes to meditate for myself in probably 3 weeks. And I just thought, how did it get so out of hand? And so I sat back down again this morning and it just totally recentered me. You know what? All this stuff can wait 10 minutes. It's going to be fine. It's hard to keep some of those practices make them habit, but you
Mhm.
can tell when they slip and you just got to pull yourself back in. Yeah, meditating is a big one for me. Trying to get outside, even if it's taking a break during the workday, I'll sit outside and eat lunch if I
Mm.
can. Yeah, so those are the big ones, is being in nature for me and the meditating.
Yeah, I know. I do think those are really important, and always to recognize that's the problem. That's how I got into some of my darkest moments is I knew what to do, but I also wasn't taking it. I got it. Don't worry. I know it. Sometimes we know too much, but we don't apply it, and that's where the challenges become.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it just happens, right? I don't do it one day, this one day, and then all of a sudden it's Thursday or Friday, and you're like, oh, I didn't do that since Thursday or Friday, or maybe Saturday because the
Yeah,
weekends get busy.
yeah, it just life gets in the way. It's the other big one I should say is I do therapy too. I do an hour of therapy every 2 weeks, and I think that's incredibly important. Not whether you have a mental illness or not, it doesn't matter. Just somebody outside of your kind of friend and family group that you just talk things through with. So that's a big recenter for
100%.
me.
Yeah. And we as a society, I'm a big mental health advocate, and we all go through it. So if you've ever yelled at your kids, and I'm not suggesting that you have, right,
On a daily basis, probably.
people would consider that a mental. So let's just be softer with ourselves when we're able to talk about it. There's a difference between being disconnected with reality, and that's a more serious part. But that's why we all need mentors and coaches, and that's how when I work with people, that's what I talk to them. I go, I'm not here if you need something serious mental wellness. That's not where I am. I'm in my lane. Much like you as an interior decorator, you're not going to build a house, but you can definitely furnish the house. So
Right.
you work with a team, and mental wellness professionals come on a lot of different people, and you have to find the right person for yourself.
Agreed. And that's true with feng shui too. I'll use a lot of the principle, and I say some like 70% of interior design is therapy with people too, because you're
Sure.
working through all these different issues. But I'm not a mental health professional, but I do find that it helps clear the energy a little bit. And I'm not going to cure, I'm trying to think of an example, some block that you have, but I can help you change your surroundings so that helps support you in whatever it is that you're trying to clear. So,
Yeah, no, sure. It's knowing your resources and how to
yeah,
apply them. It's knowing what
exactly.
you feel. I'm sure when you work with a client, they want to make a change to their living environment, and they feel that they need to make that change, and they've brought in the right person when they bring in you, as well as then identifying what they want because they want to be heard, right? This is all stuff that we talk about in mental wellness, but it also applies in every aspect of our lives, professionally or not. We want to be heard. We want an environment that feels supporting, and we want feng shui or the energies within and without to be aligned with ourselves.
Absolutely. And interestingly, I always say that I don't have a specific design style because everyone's needs and energies are different. So what works for me may not work for you. I have two cats and two young kids. You have a dog and it sounds like older kids. So that alone shows that our homes should not be the same and our energies aren't the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you just, as a designer and a feng shui consultant, I just need to cater what I'm doing and curate that experience and the space to the client. It's all about really what I say, active listening and making sure I'm hearing what it is that they need and listening to what they're saying or not saying that they need. So,
Right. Sometimes asking the right question in a different way, you get a lot more information,
yes.
what's going on and why they need to make the change or they would like to make the change. They
Yeah.
think they would like to make the change. I'm sure you've been in instances where you have given great advice and then they're like, no, that's not what I want, just because they're not happy within themselves and it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with being with one of the best interior decorators.
Yes. Yeah. I have issues like that a lot where a client thinks that they know what they want. And I can say, I don't think that's a good idea. And they'll say, it doesn't matter. It's what I want. And then I have to show them a different way or show them something different to explain why I disagree with what they want to do. And usually it ends up working out. But
Yeah, you can't make everybody happy. You're not pizza. That's one of the comments.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And so you've been doing this for a while. This is not just a flash in the pan. This is something that's been proven over years and with thousands of clients. And how has that also impacted your life? Obviously, you said you were doing it intuitively before, but
Mhm.
now that you're embracing this, how's that impacting like teaching your children? I see when I talk to my own children, uh, now they're starting to listen to me. Those teenage years, maybe not so much.
I would say that I was just thinking about my kids. So when I started really doing feng shui, I got them involved in it actually. So we do an entire space clearing every Chinese New Year, and I get them involved, and it has to do. We use a lot of orange peel instead of a lot of people sage or smoke a house to clear the air. I don't like that as much. I like the smell of citrus, and I think that's really refreshing and clean. And so we do like a clearing with orange peels. And my kids come around, they help me kind of flick orange essence water all over the house. They love it. And my son was having some issues a couple of years ago. So we feng shuied his room. And one of the cures, because his bed cannot be in command, we talked about before, one of the ways to correct that is to hang a small faceted pure lead crystal halfway between the bed and the door. I did that with him and I sat with him and said, okay, we're going to do I called it magic because he was pretty young, but I said, we're going to do a little bit of magic. We're going to change the energy of how things are going for you. I want you to sit here and think about the intention behind what we're doing. And so even now, when he sees the crystal, he'll be like, oh, yeah, mom, that magic worked because things have kind of worked out for him. And so I think it's just been over time. Yes, I was doing it intuitively before, but now I've got my own concrete proof from having done it during COVID and really using it in my own house. And now I've got client testimonials that have helped push that type of design philosophy forward in my business. Now I have people seeking me out who want to design with that sort of intention or change the energy of a space. And that doesn't mean we have to renovate a bunch of stuff. It's definitely helped my business and helped me find the right clients, the right types of clients that I want to be working with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about the orange piece because I have saged my house, due for sage. So that's why I'm curious. So what is this orange process? I never heard of that, and I love citrus. And people used to laugh when I dusted. I always had the polish, the orange flavored polish, and it made
Yeah.
me feel so much better. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you smell like an orange when you walk in here." I'm like, "Well, I like it. It's my house. You don't
It's
like it?
refreshing. It's
Yeah, sure,
uplifting. Yeah.
sure."
It's known to have that sort of those qualities to it. I would say the easiest way to do it is just to get like an orange essential oil, or I use lemon too when I'm cleaning, and you just mix it in a spray bottle. And instead of walking around your house and saging, you take, or actually, I would do essential oil and water in a bowl.
Hmm.
And as you walk around, you dip your fingers in it and you flick it into all the different corners. You open your closet. It's not going to stain anything. There's so little oil in it that it doesn't
Right.
hurt anything. And you go around and open your windows, flick this water around, follow the perimeter of your house, get in all the closets, under the beds, all those kinds of things. And it just changes the way the house smells, which to me,
Sure.
it smells
Which isn't a
glorious.
bad thing. Which goes back to those senses. And if it uplifts you,
Yeah,
automatically uplifts the energy. We're energy
absolutely.
beings in an energy environment.
Yeah. And I would say if citrus isn't your thing, maybe cinnamon is, or maybe clove. The best thing about feng shui to me is that you take from it what works for you, what resonates for you.
Sure.
So, yes, there's some I wouldn't say it's very woo because that's not the right thing to say, but there's some very esoteric types of meditations and
Aromatherapy. People talk about it, and it really does shift so much. How many of us
yeah,
have ever used candles or been in a situation where you walk into just Yankee Candle or any of the other candle companies, and you're like, "Oh, this is so nice," or not, because it's a scent that might not resonate with you, but you start learning what does resonate with you and
yeah.
what uplifts you.
Yeah. And so if orange isn't your thing, use cinnamon or freesia or whatever
Mhm.
essential oil or scent works for you and use that to clear your space. And that's going back to the energy is so individualistic for everyone. And your space needs to cater to you. So do your clearings, so do the colors that you use. Everyone's got their own personalities and goals, and it will change over time too. So maybe right now you're working to complete that book that you're working on or whatever it is. You complete that. So now you've got a new goal that you want to try learning how to bake bread. But just it's constantly changing. And so you've got to take what works for you in that moment and leave the rest. That's what I say. Take what works for you and leave the rest.
That's exactly right. That's a great thing. You've given us so many gems. We're getting close to the end of the episode. Could you walk into our magic garden and maybe plant one more seed or summarize what you've given us? So that way we plant it and we'll nurture it and have it grow with us.
Ooh, I like the way you put that, especially now because it's gardening season and everything's starting to pop. I'll give one feng shui tip,
Sure.
and we've talked about it, touched on it a little bit already. Well, you know what? I'll give you two. The first is, especially this time of year, if you want to change your space, there's nothing better than a live plant or flowers.
Mm.
You're bringing nature in. It could be based on color you like, smell you like. Go get some lilacs. Peonies are about to pop, which makes me so excited. It's my favorite flower. And just bringing that into your space, whether it's on your desk, in your kitchen, in your bedroom, doing that will really change the space. And again, make it individualistic. Do what works for you, the color, the smell, the shape, whatever your favorite flowers are. So that's the first tip. The second tip, and this I'm excited about, the little crystals I was talking about before.
Mhm.
I now have my own version because I felt like even if you're not into feng shui, people love rainbows. No matter what, if there's a rainbow or a double rainbow outside, people stop and look, and it makes people happy.
Sure.
And so I have been having clients hang them in windows and things like that so that occasionally they catch the light and refract rainbows everywhere. And again,
Mm.
it just changes your mood. It shifts the energy. And in feng shui, I can't believe I haven't said this yet, but that's called the chi. It changes the chi of your space. And so even my kids, like with the one in my son's room, when it gets like, he'll be like, Mom, the rainbows are out.
That's
It
awesome.
it
I
just
never thought of that. That's awesome.
it's an easy way to bring joy, to change a mindset, to bring color again,
Sure.
and yeah, shift that chi. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much. How can everybody contact you for either interior decorating or the feng shui advice?
absolutely. So I have my own website. It's McBrien, McBrien, interiors.com. You can reach out to me via email. It's just info@mcbrieninteriors.com. I'm on Instagram as Tori McBrien. What else? Those are the big ones, I think. So
All right, those are great. Thank you so much. This was so interesting, and obviously, you gave me a lot of things to think about. So I really appreciate that as well.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. It flew by.
Yeah, that's why I said half hour, easy peasy, no problem. Uh,
Totally.
okay, and everybody else also bring peace and love into your life. And when you're bringing it back, remember, be awesome today, be authentic always, and find that love in your life. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Well, my friends, today's journey has come to a close. I hope the seeds of peace and love continue to grow for each one of you. Remember, the peace and love surround you that will assist you to rise again. And don't forget to bring a bat for what you believe in. Namaste.